Coming to you from UBN Studios in Burbank, California. You're listening to the Unsugarcoated podcast with your host, Aalia Lanius.
Hello, everybody. This is your host, Alia. I'm so happy to be here with you for another incredible and deep and meaningful and just all around incredible conversation. But before I get started, let me give a quick shout out, sending a big thank you to our sponsor for this episode, Detroit artist Caspe Dune, aka KB7_art, for all your custom original paintings, portraits, murals, and more. Please check him out. You can contact him via IG at KB7_art or at area code 313-205-4735. We'll give that to you one more time at the end. But again, we always appreciate when someone comes and supports us, and, just be sure to give him some love and some support. Well, going into other news and just, all around, I hope everyone is well. I hope you're faring well. I hope you're feeling well. I'm here in LA. COVID is definitely making life quite challenging. They say right now that 1 in 5 people could potentially be infected with COVID here. And as a person with an immune system that's very well compromised, you guys know, and I've had to take certain steps. I don't live under a rock, but I do live life socially responsible. I've made sacrifices. I make choices that hopefully keep myself and my family safe, as well as others. But COVID has definitely affected my life too. Yesterday was my youngest daughter's 4th birthday. And like many parents, I had to make a decision to keep it low key. To be honest, little Sophia is my 4th and youngest child. I've done birthday parties for the past 2 decades. She is my cutoff point. Like as a kid, she's the 4th one. She's like the one I'm like, yeah, no more after this. People are like, are you going to have more? I'm like, no, we're good with this one. But, with my other kids, it's funny because I had like milestone birthday parties. So like the first birthday party was important. The 5th, the 10th, because you're in double digits, 13th, because you're a teenager, 16, because you can drive, and 18, so you can get the hell out. No, I'm kidding. Just everybody. Hopefully I made you laugh. Let's just say I'm looking forward to my children being independent. I've already got my older one. She's gone, married and raising her own child now. But, I'm just saying, I'm looking forward to. But regardless, anyways, now without getting off track, my 13-year-old who had her birthday this year wasn't that great. My 15-year-old, we didn't really do anything crazy. But the 3-year-old, who's about to be 4, unlike the older kids, she doesn't understand what the word pandemic means. She is like, it's my birthday. And so the night before last night, yesterday, my husband was putting her to sleep, and he told me that afterwards that she was saying, she was asking if she was going to have a party and if her friends were coming. And then she said in her sweet little voice, because a birthday isn't a birthday without a party, and I'll be sad. And so this was her 4th, right? It wasn't one of my milestones. I was like, we'll give her a cake, we'll light the candle, we'll sing to her, and we'll get some food, and we'll be all right. But when I heard this, of course, as a parent, it tugged at my heart. And in a normal case, I would have loved to have given her a normal birthday party, to be quite honest. And so, I realized that either this girl is a master manipulator already, or, she was just so hopeful that this day that she had waited for all year long would feel like a birthday. So yesterday morning, my husband and I went to Party City. We practically bought the LOL section. We bought balloons, the whole bit. My dining room has literally thrown up, LOL. But it's cool because when I went home, I did all this decoration. And when she walked through the door, her face just lit up. She didn't care that there actually weren't even friends. She had mom and dad. It was a party of 3. And it was difficult, but it was amazing to still be able to bring something good to her and make her, and she just her face lit up. And I, and we've actually, just so you know, it's still up in my house, because I figured if I'm the mom who let my daughter wear a costume the entire week of Halloween, I'm fine with leaving decorations up in my dining room until I have to take them down. So that's the way that I'm sharing with you my story of how I'm learning also and adjusting and maneuvering and feeling this. Now, on some level, people will hear that and be like, okay, so you had to there's people dealing with a lot of issues right now, and I'm aware of that. And it makes me so sympathetic. I'm very, very sympathetic to the sacrifice we are having to make. I feel it. And there isn't a day that goes by that I don't think about the difficulties that others are going through. And it's just a daily thing for me to get up and want to make the world a better place. And knowing that in all reality, that is such a huge and challenging goal, but we don't give up. And by me, I'm referring to the distinct group of creatives that have such a desire to create change through the mediums we consume for content. The media that we consume during this time matters, especially right now. Honestly, it makes a difference to know that we are not alone in our suffering as well as in our triumphs. I see chaos in our lives, and I am very honored to be amongst a club of creatives that want to use our skills for social good. And the guests that graciously accept my invitation are people you will often find that have the same passion and are doing the same thing in their own industries. Today's guest is absolutely one of these individuals. So let's get started. Aalia McGuire, founder of AwarenessTies, has dedicated her professional and personal life to the service of others through raising awareness for the causes we're all tied to, one story at a time. With original and organic content, she seeks to educate and empower others to rise above circumstance and pursue their passion with purpose. Prior to AwarenessTies, with a love for words and a translator for wine, Aalia built a career in independent content production with a unique, untraditional voice. As the producer of The Alleyway, she created a lifestyle platform, publishing original posts and projects representing brands in a number of verticals, from wine to film to fashion. From serving as the Cannes Fashion Festival wine ambassador to producing 3 seasons of Train Sipping, Aalia has worked with a number of brands in front of the camera as an ambassador on red carpets and behind the camera as a photographer, videographer, and a designer. In addition, she is a professional speaker and performance poet, having presented at multiple TEDx events, who was recently diagnosed with fibromyalgia. Ladies and gentlemen, here to talk with me about awareness and invisible illnesses, please welcome Aalia McGuire. Hello, beautiful. How are you?
Actually was diagnosed recently with MS.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I did that off of memory.
Okay. No, but here's the thing. It is a chronic condition. It is an invisible disability, and every one of us that has one of these needs to stand together right now. And so I'm honored to be among like people. I know, Aalia, you are in that same boat, so we row together.
Yes, I mean, it's a badass tribe, I like to refer to it, and it's such a wonderful thing to be in a group where people are like, what do you do? Right, the famous question. So what do you do? I create social change in my media projects. It makes me it almost sounds facetious, but it's I say it with such pride, and honestly I mean it in such a humble way. And you are someone who stands out to me, and you know what, I mixed up mine because I was recently diagnosed with fibromyalgia, and we had that conversation, and so that was in my head. But you started this venture, and I'm going to kind of go through your story a little bit. First of all, where are you talking to us from today? Because I know you're not in California. You are in
someplace much colder. I'm in Michigan. Yeah.
Yes.
Owasso, Michigan.
Yes. And you are we should have had your husband on. I'm so sorry. I know I was like, you and your husband are just an incredible team. We had the pictures. You both work together. And you had this journey that led you through entertainment and kind of production, as we mentioned, and then you founded AwarenessTies. And I want to talk about it because it's TIES, so literally a lot of the photos for people who didn't see you wear ties, and ties became kind of your, I forgot something. Oh my gosh, I feel so bad, but this is where real life on the podcast. I actually have something I meant to change in between the last. Wait, tell me about AwarenessTies and what spurred that in your life.
Right, because ties are not, when you think about what accessory can I use today to make a statement, ties aren't generally what comes to mind. But for us, this is how it started. We were actually at Paramount Studios. We were working at doing a gold tie event to recognize social impact filmmakers. for setting the gold bar in social impact filmmaking. And instead of a black tie event, we said, let's do a gold tie event. And let's use this color and this symbol as a statement. And the concept was well received. Now, on the way back to Michigan, that plane ride, Jack and I were talking, and we said, you know what? This gold tie concept is really cool, but what if we didn't just do gold? What if we actually went above and beyond that? What if we use this tie as a symbol and a statement to raise awareness and support for a number of causes? People are all very familiar with the pink ribbon and the purple ribbon and ribbons specifically as a statement, a symbol of support. And we said, what if we introduced a new symbol and made a new statement that we're all tied to a cause? And so we decided, let's create a company called AwarenessTies, and let's distribute these ties as symbols of support. Let's use them to raise funds at events where people could show their support and stand and mingle with a symbol of solidarity, for the cause that they supported. And it'd be a purple tie for cancer or for Alzheimer's or domestic violence, and so on for a color for all the causes. And that's where AwarenessTies began, the symbol for a statement.
I love that. And you just name some. I mean, you guys really touch on a lot of different causes and issues. So like you said, domestic violence, I know is one I'm actually proud to be an ambassador. And we do have a picture. I know it's part of the convos. I was recently featured in your digital magazine, Aware Now. People can check that out. That's just one of the images coming up. And, it was an honor. It was funny. One of my friends was in your magazine, and then my publicist reached out because we just love what you do. And then you reached out and said, oh, we've got to have you. And, it's like that vibe, that frequency. And so it was really an honor to be part of that project. And you showcase my story. And then now I get to showcase yours. I love it. I love it when a good plan comes together, right? But anyway, coming back to this, you some of the topics that you have ambassadors for are what? Like, just share, because it's quite a bit.
Yeah, right now I believe we have 24. The newest one being addiction. So everything from addiction to Alzheimer's, animal rights. We go down to multiple sclerosis, to breast cancer, to veterans, suicide. We run the whole gamut of causes. And so we invite them on one by one as we grow and cultivate this whole collection of causes that we support. And in between each and every one of them, we're constantly sharing stories about other causes as well. Again, we started with AwarenessTies. Started with these ties being the core of what we're doing. The core, the symbol of support, that was what we started with. But then we realized it wasn't just this symbol of support, but rather it was the story that it was tethered to. And so we very quickly pivoted, and COVID helped that along, because no one's doing events right now,
right,
to which these ties could be worn to. And so we really started to focus on the core being not necessarily a symbol to make a statement, but rather the story to make a statement, which is why we started to focus, and very much so now with Aware Now magazine, and now podcast, and now talk show. So those 3 verticals for raising awareness, one story at a time. Yes. Like your story that you shared.
Right. And what we do even on the podcast, I think that's why we kindred spirits. We're taking our platforms and we're sharing it one story at a time. That's always what I tell people. I'm not here to create the narrative. I just want you to hear a perspective, hear the story. And like I've said, even I show up to hear and learn and consider somebody else's perspective other than my own. And I think that it's incredible also that as a wife and a mother that you are doing all these things. You hear talk show and you hear, and when we talk on the conversation of invisible illnesses, a lot of people look at you And, maybe on the surface, they look at you and say, oh, you're a young woman. Of course you should be able to manage all of this. But then when they hear what you deal with physically, and then they hear what you do, they're like, wow, now that's impressive. That's why I can stand in the room with a celebrity and be like, yeah, you cool. But guess what? I'm cool too. I'm kind of a badass in my own right, just so you know. Because I take pride in the fact that I get up every day and put one foot in front of the other. And I want you to speak to what it's like being a person who, just because you talked about the MS and what that diagnosis and how it's both maybe inspired, but also made it difficult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So it came on rather sudden, actually, just a couple of months ago, even just in September. And I was having issues with my eye. I said, oh, my eyes, something's going on. I can't see right out of it. And it just, a couple of days into it, wasn't getting better. It was only getting worse. And it was like a curtain that had come over. It was getting darker and darker and darker. And finally, my husband, Jack was like, okay, you need to go to the emergency room. Went to the emergency room. After an MRI, I was informed that I did indeed have MS. And there were multiple lesions on my brain. And this was very interesting to me because my sister has had MS for 19 years.
Oh, wow.
And so I was not foreign to the condition, which I think helped me because I said, oh, MS, I know all about this, just living vicariously through her stories and her heartaches and her struggles and her wins along the way as well. So it made it easier for me because of her stories that she had shared. And so we found ourselves in a very interesting situation with COVID, on us, with school shut down and daycare is not an option, all the things, and having 6 children, now 3 of them in college and off into the world, but still 3 young ones. It's a bit to manage. Right. So you've got work life and home life, and okay, we are, building this platform and have a monthly magazine and going to be introducing a podcast and this talk show. So how do we do that now? Mm-hmm. And with MS, that really didn't make it easier.
Right.
But we found a really interesting opportunity because if there is a win to be found, let's find it.
Right. Yes.
And so how can we use this loss as a win? And so it became very much, I always say, it was very much like kind of hair club for men. Like, I'm not only the president, but I'm also a member, So I got to say, not only am I the founder of AwarenessTies, but I am also an ambassador for one of the causes that we support. So I stepped up as an ambassador for multiple sclerosis and have shared my stories and my journey. And I'm excited to continue to do that and have found the blessing within that curse to empower and to elevate others.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that leads to my next question. On the tough days, because I know that we have them and we're going to talk a little bit more in specificity about that. But on the tough days, what is your inspiration?
Tough days and on the tough days, I think, there's probably someone who has it worse than me. There's probably, and so I almost feel a little bit like shamed, like, oh, how dare you feeling bad for yourself on this day? Right. Because I know there are people who, I think about all the things I have. On the days when it's hard, I think of what I have and not what I haven't.
Yes.
I say, you know what? Yeah, I can't. Sorry.
It's okay.
On the hard days, I say, I can't see really well out of this eye, but I got like killer vision this eye, so like hella vision here,
Right.
And so it's always focusing on the positive and just to say, yeah, there's a lot I don't have, but there's a lot that I have, and damn it, I'm going to use it to serve others, something beyond myself. So yeah, that's what empowers me.
And that is, I've said it a million times, I'll continue, that is definitely a character trait of a resilient spirit. People ask, like, how do you get through? And I know, and some other people will say, it's very common to say in certain communities, like, I could have it worse. Like in the cancer community, as a cancer patient, you can have a really bad day and say, well, at least, I have a friend who, I mean, in fact, literally, and I have to just make this quick mention for a dearly departed Megan. She was one of the she is an incredible woman. She just recently passed from stage 4 colon cancer. And when I think of her and I think of her 2 young daughters, and I know that when we last texted, she was, wanting to get better, but she was coming to terms with, what was her reality and the options. It was heartbreaking because I knew that she was going to have it rougher than me. And like, it's very common for sometimes us, and some people will say, well, that's just bad. You're thinking of somebody else having a worse situation than you, but it's really a part of that self-preservation. And it does create more empathy. I'm like, I feel so much more empathy for those individuals, but I'm also, it just like, it keeps me from getting on the wambulance, as I like to call it, when you just say, okay, like you said, yes, it's a bad day, but it could be so much worse. Mm-hmm. And as much as some people may feel that that's a mean thing to say, it's actually not, or not mean, but like, it's just kind of a weird thing to say. It's what you have to do, to be quite honest. And we have, it isn't what you have to do, but it is what we end up doing in a lot of cases. So I can relate to that. I want to say these 3 things. Oh, and actually, let me back up, because I also love about AwarenessTies is that you aren't just focused. I know with Unsugarcoated Media, when we first started, people were like, who's your target demographic? And I just said survivors of trauma. And I've said it before. In 2019, when I said that, people were like, well, that's very vague. And now I'm like, turns out it's not that vague. We're all dealing with a sort of trauma. We deal with traumas in our life very often. I myself have dealt with multiple. I don't feel like I can just speak to one. I don't want to just focus on the cancer community. I love my cancer community, but I don't want to just focus on them. I don't want to focus just on the autoimmune diseases, the domestic violence, all these different things. So I love that you aren't afraid to take on more than one cause. Was it your similar experience? Did anyone ever say, well, don't you think you're kind of taking on too much? You probably should stick to little. I'd love to hear.
And so we did have that. We had a couple of people who sort of served as advisors for us, and people who were working with us as we were sculpting and building this out, and we're saying, so this is what we're going to do. And like, well, but that's a lot of causes. You should stick to this or stick to that, or select, like, they have to be similar. And we we got it, but then we're like, but that this isn't us. This isn't us. Because when Jack and I looked at it, we said, of all the causes that we currently have in this cause collection, Jack can probably identify with maybe 8 or 9 of them. I myself, very personally, like 6 or 7 of them. We are all tied to a cause.
Exactly.
And what we're really excited about moving forward with, something we're going to be introducing soon, is the human cause. And this is why. It's because, here's the thing. We're all used to checking boxes, right? So we check, what is your race? What is your education level? What is your, so we're all used to check a box kind of society. And that's been the way, it's a societal norm. Mm-hmm. We want to challenge that, and to challenge ourselves to say, okay, here's all these causes. And so we'll list all of our causes. Check all the ones that apply to you. What will always be checked off on this checklist is human. Mm-hmm. Because that is the one that we are all tied to. And it is through this common empathy, when we look at that common thread that ties us all together. Maybe someone's suffering with breast cancer and dealing with that. Maybe someone else is, dealing with suicide prevention, or dealing with something like that. Like, there's so many different things, but there is this common element and this empathy that's required and needed. And from these different experiences, we find this common ground. And I think that's where we need to find our way, is not what makes us different, but what is it about these things that brings us together?
Exactly. Yeah, because, it's funny when you say that, in my mind, I'm wondering, okay, so you have a box of maybe a certain disease or experience or trauma, but if you were to take the boxes of emotions, of feelings, how did you feel? Like, you can take three different causes, and then maybe talk about the emotions and the experiences, the financial detriment, the, you know, emotional trauma that came with it, and it goes across all those different causes. That's why I get it, and that's why, because, you know, like I said, like you trauma is trauma, and I can't just say I've only experienced one trauma and then that was it. But you know, and then also, like we said, to self-preservation, when you get to know other people and their experiences, then it can cause you to be a little bit more reflective on your own situation and say, okay, we both have a crappy situation, but you know what? There's connection in that. There's a camaraderie in that. And that's, you know, what I love creating with what we do. And I love that you guys are doing it. So going into, like, again, the invisible disabilities conversation. So I'm a person, and you're young, beautiful, you know, I know you're probably chasing after kids all the time. When people see you, you know, they don't see your disability quite often. They don't see what you go through with your eye. They can't step into your body and have that experience. But a lot of times people will just make assumptions. And I have three comments that I want to, or three statements that I feel I want to get your feedback, or what do you feel or what you think when I say them. Number one, I live with invisible disabilities, whether others see it or not. Number two, I live with invisible disabilities, but I am not invisible. Number three, I live with invisible disabilities, and I am strong and courageous. Tell me, like, with what you do when you hear that. And yes, I can bring it. I'm wearing my spoon. We're going to go to the spoon. Anyone who knows the spoon theory?
Sisters.
Yes. Because you do look to create things that people can also feel a connection. And so my best friend, who knows I'm all about the spoon theory, which was published several years ago from an amazing young woman who tried to give an illustration about what it was like to live with I think she had lupus, and I know, you know, I related in the autoimmune world, and just her friend asked her what it meant, which she would give an example and she had a bunch of spoons in her hand, and with each activity, you know, drying my hair, taking a shower, okay, that's a spoon, brushing, you know, just blow drying the hair, because a lot of people don't understand it hurts after a while to blow dry your hair, okay, that's another spoon. Go make yourself breakfast, that's another spoon. By the time you're done, just that one pile of spoons you have, you're out. And when I first read that, I was like, oh my gosh, somebody just articulated what my life is about, and days that I'm like, I know I'm borrowing spoons from tomorrow because, you know, I'm going to need extra ones today, but I know tomorrow I'm going to pay for it. So, you know, I live this life. When I say those comments, and knowing what you do in the industry and within the social world to these topics, what do those statements make you think of?
Well, you know, first and foremost, it's spot on with the spoons. When I first heard about that story and that metaphor, I myself have a very metaphorical mind, and everything is very visual for me. And so when I heard that, all of a sudden I got it, and I understood instantly when I would hear before, I don't have spoons for that. I'm like, what are you even talking about? What do you mean you don't
Go
have
in the kitchen and get some.
Like, I'm not cool anymore. I don't know that lingo. I don't know. But when I came to understand and realize and live out that spoon theory and what that means, and start to apply it to my life, what a powerful statement, what the power of words is and can be, and these symbols, these statements. Wow. You know, with regard to the comments that you share in those statements, you know, it's hard when people can't see you. They call it invisible disabilities, very rightly so, a very clever naming situation there. But just because you can't see it doesn't mean that it's not real.
Right.
And we all understand this. You can't see the wind, but yet you can feel it.
Wow.
The same with
if you've ever had a toothache,
things, right?
Right. If you've ever had a toothache,
right. You know, so it's these pains that we can't see, but that doesn't make them any less valid.
Right.
And so we have a very interesting sort of society where we have to be able to validate things in order to make them count. and we have to be able to validate them according to other people's rubrics and systems, and that's just probably not right at all.
Right.
And so with invisible disabilities, and now physically being part of that community myself, I got it before, I really get it now.
Right.
And you know, that just because I have an invisible disability, just because I have a disability, doesn't mean that defines who I am or what I am. For sure, because I find myself constantly evolving and changing now, just as I always have before. And this one disability isn't going to be the end all be all for me or what I can or cannot do. It doesn't define my capabilities. Does it define some of my restricted things in terms of activity on one day or another? Yeah. But so does having a headache. When you got a headache, sorry, I'm restricted today, you know. So restrictions, these are temporary things. And while MS and a lot of invisible illnesses don't have a cure, they do have treatments, and they do have ways to battle. And that's what we do as warriors.
Absolutely.
With an invisible illness. So
absolutely. Yeah. And you know, like when whether others see it or not, you know, people, I remember one time recently, my husband had an accident. So I have a disability placard because I have, one of the conditions I have is POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, meaning that my blood doesn't automatically recirculate when I stand up or become active. My heart rate goes up and it doesn't go down automatically. It takes a while. And so when people laugh at my placard, well, first of all, I live in LA, so I'm not even gonna lie that I don't love my placard, because if you don't have a placard in LA, that sucks. I'm not gonna lie, but it does. It's like, especially when I have to get my daughter out of the car and things, like little activity actually takes a lot of my wind. So yeah, I mean, when I can walk further, I will, but there are times I cannot. And so I'm not going to feel ashamed. I'm not going to be shamed for trying to live a better quality of life and conserve where I have. I don't have to be Wonder Woman, which is what a lot of times people will feel guilty of. While I'm being limited, I'm restricted. Well, now I feel guilty. We shouldn't. And I encourage anyone out there to not, you know, take on that, monkey on your shoulder. But anyways, I was saying this because we went to Starbucks, and my husband, I'd been in his car, and so we had taken my placard, and then I go to Starbucks and I park in the handicap, and guy did not see I didn't have it. And right away he's like, and he looked at me and he was just like, oh, you don't even. And I was like, look, I genuinely have a handicap placard. My husband just has it in the car. I'm so sorry. Do not think. But I felt like I had to defend myself, and I'm like, I know someone's going to look and be like, what is she doing? But, you know, on top of that, also, like, kind of speaking to the placard, people with disabilities can also feel very marginalized. I'm not invisible. If I roll up into the stadium and I'm in a wheelchair, there should be a space for me. Like, we often in society don't consider people with we do, but we don't, right? It's inconvenient when we have to. I know many business owners that are like, oh, I have to become ADA compliant. I have to, like, do certain things. Yeah. And, you know, so people with invisibilities matter. They're not invisible. And on top of it, we are so strong and courageous. And that's why I love your spoon, because we hold on to symbols that remind us. So anybody who wants, if you are challenged by physical limitations or things, go, you know, we'll give their website. But the spoon was a gift from my best friend. And I love it because when I do wear it, it's such an amazing reminder of my reality, but also my courage. And so I love that you do that. When we talk about the things that we can do, because I always like to bring, you know, education and knowledge. What for you have been some of the things, I'll talk about some of the things I've learned, but what for you have been some of the things that you have learned to manage and balance that, you know, those invisible illnesses with the work that you do? Like, what are the things that you've done that have helped you, your life hacks, if you will?
This is an interesting question. Well, so first of all, you know, you're just saying that it's, you know, when you get to, like, you're tired, so you say, okay, I'm out of spoons right now. Like, having to say, okay, this is the way of it, and accept that reality, and that some people can feel embarrassed or shamed by it. You know what? I actually got pissed. Like, I got mad. I got really upset, because this is a woman who would work until 3 and 4 in the morning and create this beautiful, interesting, eclectic, you know, content here and there and everywhere for years. And then I find myself in this different position where here I am, this same woman who has the same ambition, the same passion, the same drivers, and go to get to work, and that I'm facing something that I can't control. Like there's an enemy that I can't fight the way I want to. When the battle is waged within you, it's really difficult sometimes. And so at first, I didn't get necessarily sad or discouraged. I got angry.
Right.
I got really mad. And I think that translated to them getting sad, and I'm a crier, so I'm like, oh. But but from that, getting stronger to say, okay, Allie, this is the situation. What are you going to do about it?
Right.
And so finding empowerment and saying, I can't control the reality of this. What I can control is how I react to this reality.
Yes. And yeah. I mean, and plus, like, I was very ticked off at my body. I get ticked off with my 4-year-old. I always feel so bad. I'm like, oh man. I mean, and I've had health issues for a while, but I do feel like also I'm older, and like then I am more affected by my disabilities a bit more. I can feel them, and then I feel badly, right? I feel guilty for not being the mom who can get up and still run with her and do all these things. And I've had to learn to forgive myself. And I've had to learn to, and I've also had to be cautious to say, okay, sometimes I'm mad at my body, but then sometimes I also realize that one of the reasons I'm actually experiencing the pain that I am is because my body is fighting for me. It may not seem like it, but it is fighting for me, and it is working on your behalf. How has the journey been for you? So you have this personal experience, and now you create content that really supports other individuals going through the same journey. What has the feedback been from that?
The feedback has been phenomenal. And the thing of it is, this is something that Jack and I started before I had MS. This is something when we just said, we'd gone different ways in our lives and had different career paths and different realities already very well defined. And we said, but this isn't enough. At the end of the day, I mean, just profit alone doesn't do it. There has to be purpose. And it kind of got to a point where we said, well, how do you figure out what that purpose is? And how do you know what to do? You want to do more. How do you know?
Right.
And then I think we got to a point where we just said, what is something that we would be willing to bleed for? What is something we would be able to just pour our whole everything into for ourselves, for our kids, but for something bigger than we are.
Right.
And that's, I think, where we came with AwarenessTies to say, it's not enough to do something to preserve ourselves and our existence. Like, that comes and goes, but there's something bigger out there. And so when we got into all this, we said, well, what are we going to do? Let's start a nonprofit. Let's start a nonprofit that does good things. What should it be for? And all the things. There's a million causes. And we said, well, which cause? I said, well, what if we were to support all of these causes?
Right.
And what if our role in all of this was not to go and create the change? What if our role was to be the catalyst of the change?
Right.
What if our role was not to take center stage, but rather to build the stage? And so that's what we did. AwarenessTies is essentially a stage for these stories to be seen and to be heard.
Right.
To raise awareness, because we all know that it begins with awareness. Action can only happen after you're aware of the issue that needs to be, corrected.
Right.
So,
And then on top of it, you're helping people learn more about, I know for me, when I heard other cancer fighters or other autoimmune disease people who experienced that, when I heard their journeys, it provided me with knowledge. It provided me with inspiration. And I think that knowledge, you said it a bit earlier, but learning about your illness is incredibly important, and there's a lot of stuff out on the internet and what stuff that will scare the hell out of you, right? Like, I remember my oncologist used to be like, stay off the internet. Like, I'd get a lab test done and I'd be going home, and he's like, no Google for you until you come in here and talk to me. Then that way you don't come in, because I'd come in all stressed out, right? I'd be like, oh my God, the internet said I'm going to die in 3 weeks. And he's like, stop it, you know. But learning and then becoming my own advocate. Like, basically what I felt when I was diagnosed with these conditions, I felt I had to go out and learn and be proactive. Like, when I remember being in music and telling my artists, my clients who are music artists, know your craft, right? Study. Don't just be a singer to sing. Go learn about other singers. Go learn about the music they created. What inspired them? Just go let's learn other music. And I feel like in our positions, it's important to go and learn so that you know how to advocate. A doctor, at the end of the day, though often well-intentioned, they are just another person who is a human being who does not have X-ray vision. They are not Superman. They make, they make suggestions or things like that. And I felt it was always important for me to not just put all my trust in this one doctor or these doctors. Like, I have a responsibility. I'm the one who has to live in this body. So I'm going to make sure I'm making changes, right? And I say that to say, like, I changed the way I eat. So I went out there and I learned things that were healthy for me that didn't cause inflammation, and then I tried to eat those. You are helping people hear these experiences, learn what has helped another individual through their own journey. What has been one of your favorite stories to share so far?
Oh my goodness. Wow. There have just been so many. I will tell you that.
Well, that's why I said one of them, because I know it's hard to pick a fave.
There is a box of tissues by my desk because, and I told you before, I'm a crier, but every day I'm in tears, and people say, why do you do something that just makes you cry all the time? I said, because they're beautiful tears. Like, these are the tears you want to have. These are the tears that let you know that you're alive and you're feeling things for the right reasons and for the right people. And so I think I can think of one of the most recent ones that really had an impact and that I took action, personally took action for. It was about a young lady named Dahlia, who is Dahlia. Delilah. Which is funny now, because whenever I hear that song, hey there, Delilah, I think of her now, always and for the rest of my life. 11-year-old young lady who has Rhett Syndrome. Now, I didn't know what Rhett Syndrome was. The way I came to find this young girl is I connected with her mother on Instagram. I was looking to make more connections in the MS community, and came across this woman who had MS, and okay, so I'm learning about her and her journey. And she did a hashtag Rhett, and it was a picture of her beautiful daughter who's in a wheelchair, and I was like, well, I don't even know what Rhett syndrome is. And so I Googled it, and come to find out it's a very rare disease that affects young girls. And so I dug deeper and learn more about this condition, learn more about her personal story. I reached out to her and said, hey, this is an interesting story. I would love to hear more. Come to find out, her mother, Cecilia, who I spoke with and conducted the interview with, she has MS. Her husband has MS. Their daughter has Rett syndrome. And so there's this story upon story upon story. And hearing her speak about her daughter, not about herself and the MS she's dealing with, or her husband and what he's dealing with, but just specifically about her daughter, and about, the scariest thing being that there are mornings where she is terrified because she's very aware that she will most likely wake up, but that's not necessarily the case for her daughter, because they call Rett syndrome the silent killer for a reason. So as a mother, I think I can't imagine going to sleep not knowing if my daughter was going to wake up. What a horrible, terrible weight to have every day of your life. And to know that she carries that, but with faith and with love and with hope. And she fights for herself, for her daughter, for her husband, and says, okay, let's do this life. That, Aalia, is why on the days where I'm having a bad day, it's not such a bad day.
Right. Oh, that is so powerful. And I mean,
You know?
exactly that desire. I always have said it a million times. I wish for a magic wand to wave it and be able to change circumstances. And I often say that we're part of the crew that always are cheerleading and go, but we also live in a world, and the people we deal with and the issues we deal with, we recognize not everything is just simply fixed with a cute meme and it takes real work. Real things need to happen, and sometimes they won't. Like my best, I mean, I've said goodbye to too many people who wanted to be here and continue to fight as long as they could. But, it doesn't always have a quote unquote happy ending, right? But I so admire the tenacity and actually even being sick. I've always said, I'll take any illness any day over my kids getting it. And I know you as a mother will relate.
Mm-hmm.
So we can very much relate to that mother's pain. And I love that your platform also, and your education and the stories that you provide don't just help individuals dealing with disabilities, but our loved ones who want a window into it, because while you can never fully understand it, like I remember one time my husband said to me, he's like, I wasn't feeling well, he said, but it was funny because he said, oh, are you sick? And I go, babe, it was just the way that they came. I'm like, babe, there's never a day that I'm not sick. There's just days that I am able to push forward a little. I fight to get in what I've got to get in. I'm fighting for that. And sometimes we can make it look a little bit too easy. So people in our life can become a little like, I'm sure you've heard of it, where they become like my husband, when we first met, he's like, oh, and then after 6 years together, it's like, oh, it's another day where you're not feeling well. Okay. And I got it. It's a little desensitized because now you're used to it and you've become familiar with it. But you continue to push and educate people within these realms for a better understanding as a creative. Who is the best person, like the people? I mean, I kind of said it, but Aware Now is doing such incredible things. AwarenessTies is. What visions do you have for it in the coming year, especially after such difficulties we've been through? And what is it that you really want people to gain from it? And who should be reading Aware Now?
Mm-hmm. Great question. I think everybody should read Aware Now. And here's why. I think that the power of a story has a magnitude that a lot of people don't realize. Not only will you learn something external, something about someone else or something else, you will also always learn something about yourself. And so whether you're wanting, people say, oh, well, I'm not a veteran. Why would I want to read a story about a veteran? That doesn't really affect me. I don't know anyone who's a veteran. I mean, I'm sure, nothing against them, but doesn't affect me. But it does. When you take a moment to step in someone else's shoes and you hear their story, that it just speaks to more of what that human experience is. And, you grow and you learn from it if you're interested in letting that in. Right. So I think in this coming year it's going to be all about just again, with AwarenessTies, it started out with a symbol and a statement, and that's what it was. We wanted to raise awareness, all good intentions. But when we realized that it wasn't about a symbol or a statement, but rather it was about the story, that's where I think everything really changed. And from the ambassadors that we have that share their incredible stories, like yourself, Aalia, our columnists who bring it to the table with what they write and what they share, it's really about gaining awareness, a story at a time, and evolving as individuals. And the hope is, as a society, as we become more empathetic and more understanding, and really finding that human thread that ties us all together, regardless of our differences.
Right. Oh, I love it. You know what? I am just so thankful that we could take this time. I actually do. So, and I have to give you props. And you are a creative. You also love, you were a spoken word poet. You, in our pre-production, gave me, do you have a short 1 minute something spoken word you can give to us?
Do you like The Sound of Music? Did you like that film growing up?
Oh yeah, I love The Sound of Music. Yes.
Yeah. So I do too. So I wrote a song, not a song. They wrote a song. I wrote a piece of poetry based on it. I like to combine the spoken word with the sung word and do things like this. Raindrops on roses, perfect poses assumed, fragrantly consumed, unforgiving thorns prick, a cruel concealed trick, and whiskers and kittens, bitten once, now shy, whisked away by conjured detail. The strong are often frail. Bright copper kettles, copper, gold, silver, metal. Will we ever settle for anything not shiny, bright, unworthy in simple sight? And warm woolen mittens, Grandma used to knit. We used to sit, talk. No longer do we trust, we just walk away. And brown paper packages tied up in string. Tied up, set up, fed up, give up, bring it to the table. I'm able, these words I write, these lines I recite, these are a few of my favorite things.
I love it. I feel it. I feel it. I feel it. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. I really am appreciative to all that you're doing. I hope you continue doing it. I want our audience to support you. And I just know that we've really only begun collaborating. So I will be seeing you again. In the meantime, for our listening audience, can you tell us where for, your handle, where can they support? Where do you want to send them to?
For sure. Yeah. On Insta, Facebook, Twitter, it is just AwarenessTies, awareness and TIES, AwarenessTies. And our URL is really simple. It's AwarenessTies us, AwarenessTies.us.
Perfect. All right. Well, I look forward to seeing you soon and all that you continue to do. Thank you so much for being with us today. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Aalia. Love ya.
Well, thank you so much. I really hope that you had an amazing experience today. I know I did. We will see you next week. In the meantime, thank you so much for letting us be Unsugarcoated. Take care. Bye-bye. Here. Come back next week.